Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. This regular meeting of the City Council will now come to order. Please call the roll, Mr. Clerk.
All right, Mr. President. Councilor Capone.
Here.
Councilor Della Sola.
Here.
Councilor DeFlorio. Councilor Hanlon.
Here.
Councilor Matusky.
Here.
Councilor McKinnon.
Here.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Here.
Councilor Napolitano. Here. Councilor Sarni.
Here.
Councilor Simonelli. President DePiero.
Here.
11 members present, Mr. President.
Will the audience please stand and join us in saluting the flag?
One moment. Item number 1, Mr. President, is an order to all parties interested in the public hearing for Comcast Cable Communications Management LLC to construct a line on Ferry Street intercepting the existing Comcast conduit and placing a 3-foot by 3-foot manhole over the conduit, continuing from newly placed manhole located at 361 Ferry Street.
Is the petitioner present?
Make a motion petition to appear.
Second.
Motion was made and seconded to invite the petitioner forward. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. I'm just not sure if he is here, he or she.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, make a motion we lay it on the table for this meeting in case he shows up later.
Motion made and seconded was to lay it on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Item number 2, Mr. President, is in order to all parties interested in the planning board report and ordinance to amend the City of Everett zoning ordinance to allow electric generation plants substation use by special permit in the Lower Broadway waterfront mixed-use sub-district by revising Appendix A.
Chairman's petitioner present.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to invite the petitioner forward. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Please step forward and introduce yourself for the record.
Yes.
Thank you.
Dan Cameron with National Grid with offices at 170 Bedford Street in Malden.
David Arthur, project manager with National Grid out of Reservoir Woods.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, if they would just explain the petition, please. Oh, someone else.
A few more guests.
Good evening. Sorry I'm late. For the record, my name is Joshua Lee Smith, and I'm an attorney for my client, New England Power Company, doing business as National Grid.
If you would begin just by explaining the petition, please.
Yes. Thank you. I'd like to just give a really brief procedural history with respect to this petition. On behalf of the company, we filed a petition for a zoning amendment back on June 22nd, June 21st, I'm sorry. Subsequent to that, we met with this council in connection with the petition, seeking a zoning amendment on the project. The City Council immediately referred the petition to the Planning Board, and thereafter we met with the Planning Board, and the Planning Board at its meeting on August 21st voted unanimously to approve the recommendation for a favorable recommendation with respect to the petition that's being sought in connection with the zoning amendment. And we are here before you this evening to provide a very brief presentation with respect to the project, to provide a little bit of background with respect to the need for the project, the need for the zoning amendment, as well as to provide a little bit of background with respect to the neighborhood and the impacts with respect to the project on the neighborhood.
Yes.
holding for you, Josh, if you want to come up.
Oh, sure, well, we can certainly be brief.
I think just the area.
Yeah.
Maybe showing the area. Yep. Yep.
So for the counselors, this is an aerial of the site. As highlighted here, and as was included in some of the materials that we had submitted, both to the planning board as well as the council, this parcel is being acquired by the company to utilize it for what's called an unmanned electric substation. This neighborhood, as I'm sure many of the council members are familiar, is surrounded by an MBTA property located here, as well as this property here, which was acquired and recently developed by Wynn Casino to be utilized as a back operations facility. There has since been construction of a support building that's used by Wynn. In the rear of the property is a railroad corridor, and directly adjacent to that railroad corridor are existing transmission facilities, overhead transmission lines. Farther, a few hundred feet away are residences, one of which includes a residence called the Batch Yard. Farther down south is Broadway, which includes, as many of you know, sort of an eclectic mix of commercial, retail establishments, restaurants, etc. This property is at 3 Charlton Street. It is within what's called the Lower Broadway, the LB WMU, the Lower Broadway Waterfront Mixed-Use Subdistrict. This particular subdistrict, which is highlighted in blue here, and this is the parcel for the proposed substation site. This area here contains essentially many industrial-related uses, as well as what will soon be the Wynn Casino itself. The property itself is wholly compatible with respect to the other uses in the area. It is perfectly sited for this type of a use. Again, as I mentioned, it's behind this is a railroad property and already pre-existing transmission line facilities. So the amendment is quite simple. As we included in our petition, what we are seeking is a simple change of the use table. Currently, electric substation use is prohibited within this particular sub-district, and use variances are not allowed. So the company cannot even seek or obtain the relief that it would need at the local level from the ZBA. So the zoning change would be a simple change of the use table, not to change it by right, but to require a special permit in connection with this use. And that issuance would be by the planning board. This is one more depiction of the site a little closer, which shows the triangular shaped parcel that is a little bit over a half acre in size. And again, this is the more recent current layout of the casino support building, which includes adjacent parking in this area here. I'd just like to show you quickly. This is an example. This is a sample substation site. This facility happens to be located in Rhode Island. I'm showing you this so that you can see the type of equipment and facilities that are shown on at this particular substation will be very similar in nature to the ones that are proposed at what's going to be known as the Hendersonville substation. So you can see there's capacitor banks, transformers. This building right here, this is the only building at this particular site. There'll be one control house, which will be very similar to this one here, that will also be located at the Hendersonville site. In terms of elevations, this particular site shows what's called a dead-end structure, which allows the transmission lines to come from a very high elevation. In this case, the transmission lines that I showed you earlier that are run along the railroad, those are between 80, 90 feet in height. This particular dead-end structure is about 42 feet in height, and that's the anticipated height, approximate height of the tallest structure that will be at this particular substation. So the company has really has been quite aggressive in terms of its outreach. The company's met with just about every city staff and official that would have an interest in this project, including but not limited to Jim Soper, Building Commissioner, Tony Sousa, the City Planner, the Senior Planner, Michael Vivaldi, the Director of Department of Public Works. And so there's been some initial vetting of this project, but I would like to underscore that by the council's approval tonight of the requested zoning amendment, there will certainly be a lot more in terms of vetting, both by the planning board as well as the zoning board and other local jurisdictional boards that may have jurisdiction with respect to this project. So this is one of the initial steps that needs to be taken, and the company requests your favorable vote this evening.
Councilor Matusky?
Thank you, Mr. President. To the attorney representing National Grid, we have been informed about this on June 22nd, most of this project. And the planning board has voted in favor. The Chamber of Commerce sent a letter to us supporting this proposal. So after the public hearing, I would ask for favorable action and move forward. As you can see, we have a busy chamber here tonight. We are appointing police officers. So I just want to thank you for being here, and I don't have any further questions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Capone?
Mr. President, I move we open public hearing.
Motion made and seconded to hold the public hearing. Open it. All those in favor?
Excuse the customary things, too.
Is there a motion to excuse our guest? Motion made and seconded to excuse our guest. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion was made and seconded to open the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. I'm going to ask 3 times if anyone in the audience is in favor of this petition. Then I'm going to ask 3 times if anyone is opposed for the public hearing. Is anyone in the audience in favor of this petition? Is anyone in favor? Is anyone in favor? That portion is concluded. I'm going to ask again 3 times if anyone is opposed to the petition. Is anyone in the audience opposed? Is anyone opposed? Is anybody opposed? That portion has concluded. Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Make a motion for favorable action.
Mr. Chairman, in regards to this issue, I believe a lot of us have a lot of questions, and we definitely don't want to hold anything up. But my recommendation is to hold this over. I mean, is this something that we have to vote on tonight? Is it something that is going to hold up anything?
That's at the body's will.
You have a motion.
Second.
Do you have a second?
If we-
So you
Could
have
I
to
ask
take the
the
vote.
question to the petitioner? Well, we've already excused them.
Right.
Bring it back.
So I make a motion to bring the
So,
petitioners back.
Councilors, in the sense of time, so the reason we just did what we did was to allow them to do the public hearing. We are asking you to lay it on the table, even if it's just for the next 30 minutes, so that our audience can see the
And that's
dozen
exactly
people that
what
they
I'm
came
trying
to
to
swear
say.
in, and then you can bring them back before us. The public hearing had to be held first before we went on to any other business, so I'm asking you to
Okay,
lay it
so-
lay it on the table, let the petitioners stay in the audience, and take the police promotions and the new officers.
Counselor has to withdraw his motion first.
I'm going to withdraw my motion. I'm going to make a motion to lay it on the table for 30
And
minutes.
invite them back. They weren't invited formally. Back up, Counselor.
I second the motion.
Motion made and seconded to lay the item on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I believe the, number 1, the petitioner is here. If we could please take item number 1
No,
off
we're
the
gonna-
agenda.
Since we laid it on the table, we can hold it off, so if you'd like to do the promotions, I'd recommend that we do that with our audience.
Okay.
Just a recommendation.
So, then I suspend the rules and
We
please.
do have to take public
open,
participation
public
first.
participation.
Motion.
Motion made and seconded to open public participation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. This
Mr.
is a-
Chairman, I have a sign-in sheet, but I have 4 names on here that, I don't know if they meant to sign the public participation, one being Kathleen O'Brien. So I believe that's what they're here for. So there's 4 names that would, 3 names, I'm sorry, that would allow 3 minutes each.
Okay. Kathleen, please step forward, and the period is only 10 minutes, so please be mindful if there is other speakers. So with the 4 speakers, 3 minutes. Thank you.
Are they all together? Hugo?
So thank you for having me. So my name is Kathleen O'Brien. I have lived in Everett my entire life. I own a home in Everett. I'm raising my children in Everett. And I'm just coming here today to show my support for the Everett Safe and Welcoming Coalition. As I said, I lived in Everett all my life. The past 10 years, I've actually worked in Everett with various community groups to ensure that Everett's a healthy community. And part of having a healthy community is ensuring that our residents feel safe. And since I've been working with this coalition, we've learned that some of our residents don't feel safe. Folks who don't look like me or speak like me, they, especially since January, have been feeling a lot of uncertainty, and there's a lot of fear in our community. And I know that we've met with some of you, and I'm just kind of, wanted to just come out and really just urge you to work with us on this issue. And a lot of you have been really amazing, and I just want to thank you for that, giving us your time. And yeah, it's just, some people, they're not sure if you're, if you're working with them as their residents, as their counselors, or if you're really supporting them. So I'm here as myself. This is my city. This is like my home. I don't want people to feel unsafe and unwelcome in my home. I love this city. And I just, wanted to come out and say hello to all of you and thank you for working with us. And I, really just urge you to continue working with us and show us that, you want to work with all the folks in the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Hugo's the first name. I don't know if it's, if that's an R or an N, Panita or Parita. Okay.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Ileana. Help me with translate this in English. I want everybody understand me fine. Mi nombre es Hugo Pineda, soy del Salvador. Vivo aquí en Everett por 18 años.
My name is Hugo Pineda. I'm from El Salvador and I've lived here for 20 years.
Manejo camiones para una compañía, pero también trabajo para la Iglesia Inmaculada Concepción, que está aquí al frente.
My occupation is driving trucks, but I also am a leader at the Immaculate Conception Church.
Mi trabajo más fuerte para la iglesia es formar padres latinos y jóvenes latinos comprometidos a ser líderes en su familia y en la comunidad.
So one of my biggest responsibilities at the Immaculate Conception Church is recruiting both young people, but also the priests in the Latino community here in Everett.
Motivar a cada adulto y a cada joven la importancia de ejercer el voto en el tiempo que es necesario.
And along with one of those biggest responsibilities is also motivating our young people that live here in Everett, but also different leaders that your vote really counts here in this city, especially during this time.
Tengo mi esposa, desarrolla pequeños negocios, 2 hijas, una en primer grado y una en 4º grado en Madeline English School.
So I have a wife, she has a small business, and I have 2 daughters, and one of my daughters attends Madeline English.
Una de las preocupaciones más fuertes de la comunidad hispana y personal es la política de nuestro gobierno que está paralizando nuestros sueños.
So one of the biggest fears, but also anxieties in our community, the Latino community, is our political climate at the moment, and how much fear that's really giving to our communities, our families, and really paralyzing the American dream.
Tengo mi estatus, tengo TPS, soy del Salvador, tengo TPS, y una de las preocupaciones fuertes es qué pasaría con mi vida, con mi esposa, con mis hijas, si este estatus es cancelado por el gobierno.
So I have temporary protected status, or by some known as TPS, from El Salvador, and one of my fears is what is going to happen next if this is revoked from our system, if it's taken away, what will happen to myself and my family.
He tratado de trabajar con los consulados de El Salvador para ver si ellos tienen un plan para nuestras familias. En un dado caso nos toque regresar, pero ellos tampoco tienen un plan que nos puedan brindar seguridad.
So I've been in communication with the consulate from El Salvador, collaborating on different conversations to see what they think that they will do if something like this happens, but they don't have any answers for myself.
Pero sí tengo la seguridad que el liderazgo que todos ustedes ejercen aquí en la ciudad, yo sé que eso nos brindará alegría y esperanza a nuestras comunidades latinas.
But I do understand that as leaders in this community, there's a lot that you can do here in this city for us, and that's something that really puts us at some peace.
Nuestros hijos se sentirán mucho más motivados y mucho más seguros ejerciendo sus carreras y gracias por la oportunidad que nos dan.
And our children will just feel more safe and also secure in our motivation in pursuing our careers and our education in the city of Everett. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker, Mr. Chairman, is Bob Duchesek. Did I say that right?
That's the last one. Should be good. What was his name? The last guy. Hugo.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Bob Duchasik, a resident of Everett since 1998, and I live right now at 142 School Street in Everett Square. I'm retired, but I do translation work for an agency that provides services to immigrants called La Comunidad, which I imagine most of you have heard of, here in Everett. And I want to point out something I discovered in the course of my work there. One day I was asked to translate from Spanish into English people's appeals. The Immigration Service allows them to appeal a deportation order stating why they feel they should not be deported for reasons of great hardship to themselves and to their families. And as I translated some of these appeals, I began to understand that that deportation is a cause for panic amongst many of the immigrant families, because if the breadwinner is taken out, the family is left with destitute, really, at least on a temporary basis. And if the mother goes, how can the home be managed? So many of the people who find themselves in this kind of a position are really facing turmoil, not only the adults, but the children in the family, who really can't understand why Mama has to fly back to Colombia and may or may not be back, and Daddy has to go live in El Salvador or Guatemala or some other country, and they're really facing a terrific situation, because down in Central America in particular, and also some South American countries, there is rampant crime, and they certainly don't want to pull their children down into Latin America in a situation where they may or may not survive. In my own visits to my wife's family in Guatemala, I've often heard radio reports of kidnapping, extortion. Anybody who owns a business down there who seems to be have a steady income is going to be addressed by pandilleros, as they're called, extortion artists.
Not to interrupt, but we're at the time limit for the speaker. I'm sorry.
Well, this is why your sympathetic understanding of the situation faced by these people would be of great value to the community. Thank you.
Make a motion to close public participation. Ask if there's anybody else.
Nobody else? Motion made and seconded to close public participation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, if we could please suspend the rules and take item number 4.
Motion made and seconded to suspend the rules and take item number 4. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item 4, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, item number 4 is a proclamation offered by Councilor Anthony DePiero as president. Whereas September is widely recognized as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and whereas childhood cancer research is vastly and consistently underfunded and is the leading cause of death by disease in children under the age of 15 in the United States, and whereas much of what we know about treating adult cancers has been learned from childhood cancer research. Each year, more than 15,000 kids and young adults are diagnosed with cancer. That's about 42 per day. And whereas current treatments are toxic, affects a child's development, and can be decades old. To treat childhood cancer in the best way possible, we need to create more awareness and hopefully increase funding. And whereas by proclaiming the week of September 25th, 2017 to be Gold Ribbon Week, we hope the more strongly known the gold ribbon becomes, the more progress can be made. Now therefore, be it resolved that Anthony DePiero, President of the Everett City Council, along with His Honor the Mayor, Carlo Di Maria, and the entire City Council of Everett, do hereby declare the week of September 25th, 2017 as Gold Ribbon Week here in the city of Everett in honor of Ella Jade O'Donnell, given this 25th day of September, witnessed by Mayor Carlo Di Maria and Council President DePiero.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Is there a motion to accept?
Motion, favorable action, accept the communication.
Motion made and seconded for favorable action. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
I need an order to do something.
Item number 3.
Item number 3, Mr. President, is an order offered by Anthony DePiero as president, subject to the confirmation by the Honorable City Council. I hereby appoint Stephen Berardino, Stephen Ramuno, Brian Colantoni, Anthony Cruciati, and Alex Vieira as patrolmen in the City of Everett's Police Department.
Favorable action on the order.
Motion made and seconded for favorable action on the order. Please call the roll, Mr. Clerk.
Councilor Capone.
Yes.
Councilor Della Sola.
Yes.
Councilor DeFlorio.
Yes.
Councilor Hanlon.
Yes.
Councilor Matusky.
Yes.
Councilor McKinnon.
Yes.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Councilor Napolitano.
Yes.
Councilor Sani.
Yes.
Councilor Simonelli. And President DePiero.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Order has passed.
They're gonna call them out one at a time.
Swear 'em in.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I
It's Kim Colantonio's son.
Yeah, just so the audience knows, we're going to do all three groups of officers, then I'm going to call for a recess so we can do some photos.
Exactly.
Thank
He acts
you.
like him, too.
Next is item 5, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 5, Mr. President, is an order offered by Council Anthony DePiero. Subject to the confirmation, the Honorable City Council, I hereby promote the following three police officers to the rank of lieutenants in the Everett Police Department. Sergeant Christopher Hannon, Sergeant Richard DeTrapano, and Sergeant Sabatino Rosa.
Favorable action on the order?
Motion made and seconded for favorable action on the order. Please call the roll, Mr. Clerk.
Counsel Capone?
Yes.
Counsel Della Sola?
Yes.
Counsel DeFlorio?
Yes.
Counselor Hanlon?
Yes.
Counselor Matusky?
Yes.
Counselor McKinnon?
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin?
Yes.
Counselor Napolitano?
Yes.
Counselor Sani?
Yes.
Counselor Simonelli? And President DePiero.
Yes,
11 yeas, 0 nays.
the order has passed.
So help me God. I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and will support the Constitution of the Commonwealth. So help me God. I will bear true faith and allegiance to the United States of America and I will support the Constitution of the United States. So help me God. Congratulations, Lieutenant. So as they come up, would the families of the three lieutenants come before us? Whoever's going to, a member that's going to be pinning their father, brother, husband.
Item number 6, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 6 is an order offered by Councilor Anthony DePiero as president. Subject to the confirmation by the Honorable City Council, I hereby promote the following officers to the rank of sergeant in the Everett Police Department. Officer Alfred Sabella, Officer Regina Collier, Officer Thomas Lane, and Officer Dennis O'Donnell.
Favorable action on the order?
Second motion.
Motion made for favorable action on the order. Please call the roll, Mr. Clerk.
Counselor Capone.
Yes.
Counselor Della Sola.
Yes.
Counselor DeFlorio.
Yes.
Counselor Hanlon. Counselor Matusky. Counselor McKinnon.
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counselor Napolitano.
Yes.
Counselor Sani.
Yes.
Counselor Simonelli. And President DePiero.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays. I do solemnly swear that I will bear true faith and allegiance and discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon me as a sergeant in the Everett Police Department, according to the best of my ability and understanding, agreeably to the rules, regulations, laws, ordinances, and charter of the city of Everett. So help me God. I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and will support the laws and the Constitution of the Commonwealth. So help me God. I do solemnly swear that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the United States of America and I will support the Constitution of the United States. So help me God. Congratulations, son. I gotta change that.
If there's any family members that are going to come up for the pinning of the badge, please step forward.
Mr. Chairman, could I have the privilege of doing something before that?
Go
I'd like
ahead.
to announce that Regina Collier is the first female sergeant ever in the city of Everett. I think that's a little... Congratulations.
Sid. Katie, can I jump in on one of these? Get closer.
Yeah. You don't have to make a motion. 20 minutes? Yeah. Give it 15, and then we can always come back for more.
We're going to take a 15-minute recess, folks.
Okay. And it'd be nice to do one big group with all, you with all the guys too, and girls. Maybe, you know, show up with everyone that did too. Hey, why don't we, do sign? Then I need you guys to sign anyway. That's fine.
took a picture of me last. You have it on selfie. Katie, how does John get this off a selfie? It's all back. She's back.
I know, I saw you yesterday. I was a fan of the music.
Sergio. He produced it? Yeah. I told him not to like, so crazy.
Here we go, Graham. Smile.
What do we do?
Lonnie, you turn the microphone. All right, we can get in here. Okay. Come on, all right, everybody, you ready? On three. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Take a peek at Daniel. Thank you.
Hi.
Yep.
It's the button said push.
Stay away from it.
If it says push,
This is not the time. The iPad phone. Whoever gets first, gonna tell you to follow me up.
So I'm looking around and you're just talking to folks. Good, yeah. I do the same thing sometimes. And I'll say, oh my God, I should have fucking it. And they'll say, but it really doesn't. That.
It's almost done.
That's good, you're on the move.
We have a lot of fun.
Say hello to Mr. Hammond. Ron, and that's Fred. He's gonna sit with me here. I have a special guest. Who is it? David Gucci's granddaughter, Gia. Come over here and sit with me. There we go. You ready? Want to hold the pen in your collar on here?
Okay.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this meeting will now reconvene.
Mr. Chairman, if we could please suspend the rules and take item number 9.
Second motion.
Motion was made and seconded to suspend the rules and take item number 9. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Item 9, Mr. Clerk.
Just, Rich, can you close that? Thank you. Item number 9 is an order offered by Counselor Anthony DePiero as president. An order to fill the vacant position of Assistant City Clerk.
like to make
Accept
we-
the
we-
committee report first and
Do we
place it on
have
file.
nominate.
a nominee? First,
So can I,
make a motion to
can I
accept
explain,
the
can I
committee
explain
report.
the process real quick? So first, you're going to accept the committee report, place it on file. Second, you're going to open nominations, nominate whoever you like, and then close nominations, please. And
Okay, so
then we'll do favorable action.
Motion to accept the committee report?
Motion was made and seconded to accept the committee report and place on file. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
I would like to make a nomination.
You have to open nominations.
I'd like to
Open
make a motion to open nomination.
Second motion.
Motion made and seconded to open nominations. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, this evening it gives me great honor and privilege to put into motion nomination for a man that I've looked up to most of my life. It's very personal tonight that I speak and nominate former Mayor David Rigucci as the next Assistant City Clerk. David has spent his lifetime of commitment to the city, and I couldn't be prouder to be voting tonight for David Rigucci as the next Assistant City Clerk, and I hope my colleagues will join me in doing so.
Motion was made and seconded to enter David Rigucci's name into nominations, and I do want to note that from the committee, he was the sole candidate recommended for the position. So David Rigucci's name is entered into nominations. Is there anyone else that will be nominated?
Make a motion to close nominations.
Second motion.
Motion made and seconded to close nominations. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
We need a motion to,
Make a motion for David.
Favorable
Ricci.
recommendation for,
favorable action.
David Rigucci.
Second.
Motion was made and seconded for favorable recommendation for Mr. David Rigucci. Please call the roll, Mr. Clerk.
Counselor Capone.
Yes.
Counselor Della Sola.
Yes.
Counselor DeFlorio.
Yes.
Counselor Hanlon.
Yes.
Counselor Matusky.
Yes.
Counselor McKinnon.
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counselor Napolitano.
Yes.
Counselor Sani.
Yes.
Counselor Simonelli. And President DePiero.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 nays.
Congratulations. Would you like to say a few words, David? Please help yourself.
Members of city government, thank you very much for having the confidence and faith in me in being able to perform the job of Assistant City Clerk. I can promise you one thing, I will not let you down. Thank you so very much. I'd also, if I could, just introduce my granddaughter, Giovanna Marie. Hi, Gia, who's with me? Yeah, sorry, Gia.
Mr. Assistant City Clerk, may you raise your right hand after I say aye. Say your name and we'll do it 3 times. I
I, David Rigucci,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent upon me
all the duties incumbent upon
as
me
Assistant City Clerk
as Assistant City Clerk
of the City of Everett,
of the City of Everett,
according to the best of my abilities
according to the best of my
and
abilities
understanding,
and understanding,
agreeably to the rules,
agreeably to the rules,
regulations,
regulations,
laws,
laws,
ordinances, and charter
ordinances, and charter
of the City of Everett.
of the City of Everett.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I
I, David Rigucci,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts
to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts
and will support the laws and Constitution of the Commonwealth.
and will support the laws and Constitution of the Commonwealth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I
I, David Rigucci,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the United States of America,
to the United States of America,
and I will support the Constitution of the United States.
and I will support the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. Assistant City Clerk.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Yeah, but wait a minute.
When
we
you
have,
start.
It's
Good.
gonna take too long. Get the people out of here, 15 and 16.
They're waiting now, George. I just told him he's coming up, so.
Congratulations.
Item 16. What do you want to do, Anthony?
Do 15. Do 15. Motion to take item number 15 off the calendar. Do it.
Motion made and seconded to take item 15. All those in favor?
We already have that.
Opposed? The ayes have
I
it.
understand.
Is there a motion to invite Mr. Lane before us? Motion made and seconded to invite Mr. Lane before us. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Please read the piece of business, Mr.
Yes.
Clerk.
Item number 15 is a resolution offered by Councilors Richard De La Sola and Michael McLaughlin to invite Facilities Maintenance Director George Lane to the next meeting to report on the renovations of the bathrooms at the Recreation Center on Elm Street. This is dating back to 5/22.
Do you want to go right to questions, Mr. Lane, or give a little overview?
Excuse me?
Do you want to be asked questions right away, or do you want to speak first?
No, go ahead, I'll answer any questions.
Counselor De La Sola?
Mr. Lane, good evening. Can you just give me an update on the bathrooms down at the rec center?
As it is right now, George Lane, Director of Facilities. As it is right now, been working closely with Eric in FY17, wrapping up. FY18 is underway. Some of the money that was encumbered and brought back into the account is being used to fund that project. I'm sure all of you is aware that we now have public schools going into the high school. It was kind of a panic situation laid on us last minute. Facilities Department built all the handicap bathrooms for them up there. All fire alarms are 100%, fire pumpers 100%, hadn't been started in a couple of years. So, you know, we took everything life safety very serious in that building, given the age of the building, and is 100% completed. So fire department, building department, we're all there for fire pump tests, everything, pressure tests, alarm tests. So it was a lot of work, big undertaking. I know we had discussed the rec center and the bathrooms, but some of it was funding coming along, some was prioritized and everything. And so we're finishing up one project right now. My guys are actually walking out there and cleaning up tomorrow morning, and we're off to the rec. So the rec has been a big undertaking too, because we needed a plumber on board. Our last plumber has chosen that, given his age, he kind of aged out with it and he didn't want to do it anymore. He did have vacation time, which I guess was his right to use it, but he never really gave us our notice that he was leaving. So, by the time we hired and advertised and put a plumber on board, we had kind of a gap there. We were without a plumber. Plumbing's one of the major things we're going to do down there. We're going to cut the concrete floor. We're going to put all brand-new 4-inch underground, relocate the bathrooms so that now they're going to become handicap compliant, building code compliant. Right now, they're not. So that means we got to get into the floor system, jackhammer everything up, cut the floors. That way that we can build the bathrooms properly.
Okay, just want to give the people listening an update. What happened was a rec center, the court was done over. It's all rubberized in case water got in there. And myself and Councilman McLaughlin went down there and we saw the bathrooms. They were aging, and this is why we have this piece on the agenda right now to renovate the bathrooms and in the lobby if that was possible, and then the whole rec center would be all neat and safe for everybody.
Yes.
So just people listening knowing why we did this, and you know yourself, it was way overdue to be renovated.
Oh, absolutely. Like I say, it was just a matter of getting the financial approach squared away with it. Like I say, I've been working very close with Eric on that. He's helped me out tremendously since I got into this department. And just moving forward, scheduling, we're going to be off and working down there tomorrow morning. So we just finished up a big project, actually. Actually, two of them are almost consecutive, so.
Okay. When you're renovating it, will there be bathrooms they could use? They're going to be like
There is
porta potties outside, or?
Yeah, there is a bathroom around the corner, a handicap bathroom. I mean, but at some point, yeah, it's going to be a construction zone. So hopefully we can get it scheduled up and get it taken care of without, disrupting too much, because it did. The court came out very nice. People like using it.
Right.
So we got rushed out of there. I mean, they, all of a sudden the court's done. Let's get in there, have a summer session. And we were like, wait a minute, we need time to finish
Right.
this. They booked it prior to we ever had an opportunity to, finally give it a once over and, a checklist. So the company that actually helped us with the installation went back in there for no charge, went up and just, corrected a few things that needed to be corrected. So, yeah, we're very happy with the way the floor come out. Very happy that the public facility guys had the opportunity to take on such a big
They
project.
did a great job.
Yes. Came out nice.
Just one
Speaks
more
well for
question.
them.
Do you know when you're going to start it and how long it would take to renovate it?
Tomorrow morning, we're
bathrooms?
gonna go over everything with the plumber in the morning, what's gonna be jackhammered out. So as far as getting the people into the place and start working, I would expect them either to be in there tomorrow or the very next day cutting the floor, and, yeah, we're going full speed. As you know, I think I brought the plans up with me last time I
Yeah.
was here. So we have a design already done by an architect, already put in place, we're gonna go forward with it.
Right. That building's always used, and, we're shorthanded when it comes to facilities for the kids to play indoors, and I want to thank you for jumping on this.
Yep.
Now that we have the guys to do it.
Thank you.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Lane, again, thank you for the job you've done at the Old Everett High School and the court down the rec center. Quick question, do you know ballpark figure of price on doing these two bathrooms over?
Say that again?
Ballpark figure on doing the two bathrooms over price-wise?
I didn't
Do you know the
understand.
cost?
Oh, the
of-
cost of
Yep.
completing it? We estimated it to be around 50,000, but, an estimate on it is covering all angles and all bases and all things that may go wrong. I'm sure all of you guys have done a construction project around your house, sight unseen things, what goes wrong. I mean, hopefully we tie into the cast iron that's there, we don't have to chase it. So, we're hoping for the best and put money in good places, so.
Okay. No, my only reason for asking that is because Councilor Del Sol mentioned it. If there's a possibility of doing the lobby area over in maybe that other office that's in the front, that's why I just wasn't sure where appropriation-wise, money-wise,
Right.
if we had the opportunity to look at those, because then you have a brand-new facility built within a shell of an existing
Yeah.
shell.
Mr. Del Sol actually asked about that last time, and given that it's just a lobby area and it's just tile and paint, that would be the least costly of areas to redo while we're there. Plus, don't forget the cast iron is going across in those areas, tying bathroom to bathroom.
Yep.
We're gonna be into that area anyway, so as far as tying everything up, I'd hate to get through with two beautiful bathrooms, a beautiful court, and have to walk through that lobby area to get to it all.
Absolutely, I
So-
agree. So that's good to know that you guys are going to be able to spruce that up as well, and I appreciate all the effort your department has been doing around the city. You guys have done a lot of great work and saved
Thank
our
you.
city a lot of money. So take that message back to your members if you would, please. Thank you.
Thank you. We've actually, just on a side note, we've looked into air conditioning the place for next year, too. So we're 4 mini splits in the building. We'll complete an AC for the kids. That ought to work out well for them playing sports, and anybody who's been in there knows you can play for 10 minutes, you gotta go out and get a breather. It's hot, so. You're welcome.
Councilor Matusky, on behalf of Councilor Simonelli?
Director Lane, Councilman Simonelli is very disappointed that it's been taking over 2 years. And the sooner it gets done, completed, he'd be very satisfied, but he's disappointed. Why is it taking so long? He's disappointed. He knows you're here to give a progress report, but as you can see, he's very disappointed.
Yeah.
It's taken over 2 years to complete the project. So that's his feelings on it. The sooner you get it completed, the better.
No, I understand. Seems like we're run with deadlines on a lot of projects. We're always chasing things. People want things done, or they should have been. I only came on board in March, and we've had a long laundry list of things we've been I call it putting out fires everywhere. So, doing the best we can. We're gonna jump on it as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Motion made and seconded to excuse Mr. Lane with a customary thanks. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. You're excused, Mr. Lane. Thank you.
Thank
What's
you.
your pleasure on the piece, councilors?
We're going to lay it over to the first meeting in November and just see how the progress is going.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to lay it over to the, what meeting was it?
First meeting in November?
First meeting in November. Would you like him to appear again or a written response? With the written response. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Motion made, suspend the rules and take item number 2.
Motion made and seconded to suspend the rules and take item number 2. All those in favor? Opposed, the ayes have it. I believe we already had the public hearing for this piece.
If we could please have the petitions back before us.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to have the petitioners back before us. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it.
And
Just let the
apologies
public
for so
know,
long.
We are sorry for keeping you waiting so long. We had the public hearing, so at this point, I'm going to open it up for questions for the councilors. Councilor Capone?
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to our invited guests. Thank you very much for your patience. I know it's been a long night. You started your presentation. We probably forgot most of it. But the reality is, you've got that section over there. Who benefits from this system? What are the customers? Who's going to be served? I know you said 42 feet was the highest height of one piece, and stop there, and then we'll go from there. We'll pick it up. So who is the customer served by?
The customer served is what we're deeming the Hendersonville neighborhood, but it's the customers directly related in and around the area of the Wynn Casino, specifically Robin, Beecham, all those businesses in that area.
Okay.
Will directly benefit from the substation. Obviously, Wynn Casino will as well, too.
Sure.
There's essentially a third of the capacity would be relegated for the Wynn Casino itself, but about two-thirds of the remaining capacity of the station will be used for the Everett. And directly for Everett, no other
Okay.
municipalities.
And 42 is the highest height, 42 feet?
That's correct.
As far as visuals, how visible is the substation? I saw the picture of the different components. How visible is that from the street?
We do
Broadway,
have
et cetera?
we do have a couple renderings. The station itself is not visible from Broadway.
Okay.
You would not see it from Broadway. However, if you were down 3 Charlton Street, down Wynn Service Road, you would be able to see it. And we've worked closely with Wynn Casino, the MBTA, as well as the mayor's staff in regards to their concerns about visual impacts. And we're proposing a wall along the service road, which would match facades of the Wynn Casino. We've retained their recommended landscape architect to work with us on that. And then she would also work out landscaping from their views. They would have a view from the 3 Charlton Street building directly at the station. So Wynn Casino is in support of this right now, but they were concerned with the overall visual mitigation. So it's Wynn Casino would have a view, and the MBTA would have a view. The backyard, we have taken some photographs and renderings from the view of the backyard, but they will be able to see the substation equipment from some certain elevations that are high, absolutely, yes.
And what is the closest distance of, is the backyard the closest residential
Yes, the backyard is the
structure?
closest residential.
And how far is that? I think you did mention that, but how far is that?
I don't know the exact figure, but it's about, I'd say 500 feet or so around to the.
500 feet to the
Yeah,
building?
exactly, yep.
It's pretty
yeah.
close.
Yes, it's close. Yep.
That said, and this will be my last question, Mr. President, thank you for the indulgence of my colleagues. This is unfamiliar territory to me. So what type of safety features are in place, being 500 feet from a residential area with something like this? What goes into that? What do you have for backup plans, anything, any contingencies, things of that nature with this type of structure?
Yeah,
Again, this isn't my forte. So,
Yeah, no worries. There's no risk of, in regards to, I guess, safety features have to depend on the safety concern. And we can go through in terms of EMF. We were willing to bring on a consultant during the planning board and special permit process to alleviate concerns and discuss that with the neighbors. We retain consultants specifically to this, and we model the area to show them. And these are independent consultants. They can take, have to take our word for it, but they're independent consultants that we hire to study the area on electromagnetic fields. In regards to station equipment, there's oil involved. However, there's oil containment that is within the site that would properly contain any oil that is accidentally released. So there'd be no discharges off the site, and that's required through our permits and our oil containment plans. And then there is very minimal risk of any, explosions or anything. That's not a risk that happens at the station. We've been operating stations out of Everett for a significant period. There's no risk of explosion.
Okay, great. Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Councilor Hanlon.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have one question, and it's regarding what you had mentioned, both of you. Could I see the map again, the first picture that you showed us? I thought you had it with you, sorry.
Very close.
We as a city council, we visit the area quite often, and the area that you pointed out that would be where the station would be, that grayish, greenish area there. Yeah. Does that go through the service road?
No.
No? Where's the service road? So that's not beside the railroad track?
The railroad is.
Okay, and where, and
the
I'm
rear.
sorry, just asking this question. Where is the MBTA?
This whole area, right.
Broadway's down this side right here. You can't see Broadway in this picture.
Do you remember where the parking lot was?
Yeah, the new parking lot?
And there were construction trailers right next to it? That's the site where those construction trailers are.
Okay. I thought the service road was beside the railroad track. That's why I'm asking the question. We went down there for our tours. That's the right.
So, yeah,
track that we
the,
took.
correct.
I mean, the service, this is a portion of the service road here.
So I don't think I know where that is yet.
This is Wynn's building right here.
The existing building you're having now?
Right. So if you come in from McDonald's, you come
Yeah.
in here, and you make this sharp turn to go left this way, with Wynn's building being right here. Go by their parking.
Okay, okay. I will look at it again. I'm not quite sure exactly yet, but okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay.
Councilor Napolitano?
Thank you. We did have a tour of the Wynn site this past weekend, and in the process of doing that, we did get a good idea of where this site is going, and I would assure my colleagues that it is off the beaten path, so to speak. You can't see it from Broadway. You can't see it from, the MBTA is pretty much blocking it more or less. But my question is, now, again, two-thirds of this is going to be servicing on the opposite side of Broadway, Beecham, those streets there. Now, is that in anticipation of the type of future development that's going to potentially
Yes.
develop down there?
Yes.
So this will provide better suiting for expansion down there than we currently are able to do?
That's correct.
Okay. That's all I wanted to clarify, the purpose, and that makes sense to me. I know there's a lot of properties up there being bought up right now. There's plans for potential development, no details yet, but it just makes sense that we'd be putting in an infrastructure that'd be able to better support a much heavier use down there.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any further questions, councilors? Councilor Hanlon?
Just a quick one, so you do with the petitioners. Can I get a paper copy of that section I was just talking about? Not today, not tonight.
Yes.
Yes, okay?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all.
Would you like to excuse our guests? Motion made and seconded to excuse our guests for the customary thanks. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. What's your pleasure? Motion made and seconded for favorable action on the item. Please call the roll, Mr. Clerk.
Just so everyone knows, this is for enrollment of the ordinance.
After that?
Counsel Capone.
Yes.
Counsel Della Sola.
Yes.
Counsel DeFlorio. Counsellor Hanlon.
Yes.
Counsellor Matusky. Counsellor McKinnon. Counsellor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counsellor Napolitano.
Yes.
Counsellor Sani.
Yes.
Counsellor Simonelli. And President DePiero.
Yes.
11 yeas, 0 no nays. You have enrolled.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Suspend the rules and take item number 1, please.
Motion made and seconded to suspend the rules and take item 1. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, I am an employee of Comcast. As a member of the City Council, I need to recuse myself as not to be in conflict.
Thank you for disclosing that, Counselor.
Motion to have the petitioner before
We
us.
need the item read first. Counselors, one moment.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry, clerk.
Yes.
Item number 1, Mr. President, is order to all parties interested in the to the public hearing interested in for Comcast Cable Communications Management LLC to construct a line on Ferry Street, intercepting the existing Comcast conduit and placing a 3x3 manhole over the conduit located at 361 Ferry Street.
Can we invite the petitioner up?
Motion was made and seconded to invite the petitioner forward. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Please step forward, introduce yourself, and just briefly explain the project, please.
service to 361 Ferry Street. We will be intercepting the existing Comcast conduit that runs basically along the curb line, and we will be placing a 3x3 manhole over that conduit, and then continuing from that newly placed manhole, placing two 3-inch PVC conduits to 361 Ferry Street for a distance of 30 feet plus or minus.
Thank you. Councilor DeFlorio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this underground, did you say?
Yes, it is.
And obviously you're digging, is that?
Correct.
Okay. Are you baiting?
I'm sorry?
Are you baiting?
For traps.
For traps?
Rodent traps and so forth.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
We have an ordinance in the city that when you dig underground, you
Okay.
have to bait, you have to put traps because we have a rodent problem in the city.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I want to make sure that you follow that ordinance that we have on the books.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, sir. And the other question is, when is this work being done?
If approved tonight, we would apply for the street opening permit, call in the dig safe ticket, and as soon as that's all in place, we would start the work.
Will this be done during the day, or will it be done, at what time do you plan on doing this work?
We could do it, most of our work is done during the day. I don't think this is gonna be a real big, long job, probably a day maybe, and could be done, and only take maybe a couple of parking spots right there.
Okay, I'm going to recommend that obviously you do it either after 9 o'clock.
Sure.
All right, because of the kids going to school and, you know, the problems, we're so congested in the city, and I understand what, you know, we try to work with you, but we also like to make the people happy. So if we could please do it after 9 o'clock and stop before 5, when the rush hour comes home. And the other thing is the police detail. You will have a police detail, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. Thank you, I don't have any further questions.
Any other questions, councilors?
Excuse me with the customary thanks?
Second? Anyone?
Second.
Motion was made and seconded to excuse the guests with the customary thanks.
Make a motion to open it to
All those
public
in favor?
hearing. Oh, I'm sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Councilor DeFlorio?
Make a motion to open to public hearing.
Motion made and seconded to open the public hearing. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Just like the last one, I'm going to ask 3 times if anyone in the audience is in favor of this petition, and I'm going to do the same if anyone is opposed. Anyone in the audience in favor of this petition? Anybody in favor? Anyone in favor? That portion has concluded. I'm going to ask 3 times if anyone is opposed. Is anyone in the audience opposed to this petition? Is anyone opposed to this petition? Is anyone opposed to this petition? That portion has concluded.
Will we excuse the...
Is there a motion to close? He's been excused.
Second.
With the stipulations that were posted, baiting in the work hours that were expressed.
And the
We do
police
have to close
detail.
the public hearing first, councilors. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Close public hearing.
Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion was made for favorable action with the attached stipulations that were mentioned this evening. Was it seconded?
Yes.
Second.
Was seconded. Please call the roll, Mr. Clerk.
Excuse me. Counsel Capone.
Yes.
Counsel De La Sola.
Yes.
Counsel DeFlorio.
Yes.
Counsel Hanlon.
Yes.
Counsel Matusky.
Yes.
Counsel McKinnon.
Yes.
Counsel McLaughlin. Counsel Sarni. Counsel Simonelli. President DePiero.
Yes.
That is 10 yeas, 0 nays.
Petition has been granted. Thank you
Mr.
very
Chairman.
much. Sorry to keep you waiting so long.
If we could please suspend the rules, take item 16.
Okay. Motion made and seconded to take item 16 from the
This whole
calendar.
side
All
was
those in
doing
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item 16, Mr. Clerk.
Yes. Item number 16, Mr. President, is a resolution offered by Councilor Stephen Simonelli to have the Chief of Staff appear at our next meeting in September to inform the public on how the new computerized parking machines are working out.
Could we please have Chief of Staff before us?
Motion made and seconded to invite the Chief of Staff before us. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Councilor Simonelli? Councilor Capone, do you have his remarks?
I do.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank
Mr.
you.
President. Through you to our invited guest. Mr. Chief of Staff, these questions are being presented on behalf of Councilor Simonelli. And he has a question, it's his piece, looking about how the computerized machines are working out. Did you want to give a quick overview on that first, or just address questions? Do you have a preference?
Whatever the council's, the body's pleasure is. They seem to be working out well, had a few little technical glitches as is to be expected initially, but they all seem to be working well now. It's, we're also working on getting information out to the public in general that they are in existence and how to use them, but they are they seem to be successful, looking to expand the program. There'll be less maintenance going forward, and I know it's very successful in other towns, like particularly in the town of Lynn, the city of Lynn. They've been using that for a few years now.
Okay. And one of the questions that the council had, and I know that when you're first faced with these, you go from the day and age when you're putting coins in a machine, and now all of a sudden you have this box, and you're pressing buttons, and you don't have a meter lined up with your spot. You look at it in confusion and go, okay, is parking enforced, is not enforced? So I think a lot of people were just confused whether or not the meters are operational at this point, and clearly they are.
Yes, they are operational, and it's, no, I have to admit, even myself, the first time I used one, over in Lynn, I'm like, what do you mean this is all I have to do? Because initially they would spit out a slip of paper, and you had to put that on the dash, and then a couple of weeks later, they updated the technology, and it was just like, all right, your information's there and you're all set, so it all works.
And I know that one of the things that the council was concerned about is some folks had mentioned to him that they had problems with credit cards getting stuck. That might have been what you talk about, getting some of the bugs out.
Yeah, that's an issue that came up quite a bit initially, but that's all been abated now. We haven't had any recent reports of that being an issue with the credit cards, debit cards, or anything of that nature.
Right. And then the other thing is that we both have mentioned it, that, it can be a little confusing. Some people might be unsure how to use them. If there's any way that either on the city website or on ECTV, we could do some sort of like a demonstration for the folks at home so they can see how you use the machine, see how easy it really is. Because it could be quite intimidating for people who haven't.
Yes, and we did have a meeting after Council Simonelli proposed the piece. We did have a meeting of how to get the information out there. I mean, a lot of us, are somewhat skilled technologically wise, but I mean, it is kind of daunting when you see, because it's, sometimes it's difficult to fathom. Like, my car's 50 feet away. What do you mean that they're going to know when my time's up and stuff? But we're working on mechanisms to get that through not only the website but ECTV. And obviously 311 is always a great source, even if you have questions on the fly, so to speak.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. President, to Council Simonelli, did we cover it? Okay. We have no other questions, and we can open it to the rest of the body. Thank
Councilor Delasola.
Thank you.
Yes, good evening. On Spring Street, the parking lot in the Everett Stadium, is this one of these machines down there? Because I noticed the meters are gone on the parking spots down there. The old parking meters are gone. And I had a couple of residents ask me why the meter's gone in that parking lot at Everett Stadium on Spring Street.
No, and I don't see that on this listing, so I'll have to follow up with that, Counselor.
They took the meters off to put the new one in. It hasn't been put in yet, but they've been gone for a
Just
little while.
not to interrupt, gentlemen, I do think that once in a while they cover them to help with the senior center at the Conley Center.
But they're gone. They're like,
They're
they're
completely
off the
gone?
pole, gone.
Okay, forget what I said then.
So if you could look into that and get back to me, and I'm just curious why they're not on the pole anymore.
Yeah, I will follow up with that, Counselor, because it's not on, they're not on the listings here, so maybe
I
they're
mean, maybe
just
for the residents,
removing
they
that
could park there
altogether.
for off-street
Yeah.
parking, but then in the morning, you know yourself, everybody parks there and
Yeah, no one will leave,
goes
so.
somewhere else. So you have
Yeah.
residents people that don't live in Everett park there.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious why they're gone.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I can get back, you can get back to me on that. Thank you.
Councilor Napolitano.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. O'Donnell. Now, regarding the square and the meters in the square, now, what are the hours of operation? I know it's, obviously it's Monday through Friday, but what about the week?
Yeah,
What about Saturdays?
they close at 6 PM, the meters. They close down and the weekend's open.
The weekends are open? Okay, so at this time, there's no traffic and, there's no parking enforcement on the weekends? Other than our police?
Other than police, yes.
All right, thank you. I'm aware of an issue down there, but I'm not going to take time at this point to discuss it. I'll talk to you in that. private.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Councilor Hanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have only one question, only one request from someone else. They can't find the meters. Is there some way of putting a large blue light up ahead so you can see it from, you drive into the parking lot and you miss the meter in the beginning. Now when you park your car, you look around, you can't find the meter. There's some way we could put up a pole, put up a white, blue, green, orange, I don't care what color. Neither do they, a light that they could turn around and say, that's where the blinking light is, that's where the meter is.
Yeah, I'm sure we could certainly find out, because they do tend to blend in, especially,
Yeah.
later on in the
Just
day.
something nice and tall so everybody can see it, okay? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions?
Excuse customary time?
Motion made and seconded to excuse Mr. O'Donnell with a
Thank you.
customary thanks. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Counsel Capone?
On the piece, Mr. President, we'll refer back to sponsor.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to refer the piece back to sponsor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Back to regular business, 8? 7?
Yep.
8, 7?
There is number 7.
Yes, 7. Item number 7.
Item number 7 is an order offered by Councilor Anthony DePiero as president to authorize a city building revolving fund for the purpose of funding related to maintenance of city buildings.
Who's doing this here?
What's your pleasure, councilors?
Mr. Chairman, is there anyone speaking on this from the audience?
Is there anyone in the audience, Mr. Lane or Mr. Demus?
Let's fight. Mr. Dimas?
Motion made and seconded to invite Mr. Demus before us. All those in
Okay.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. If you could just please explain the item, Mr. Demus, thank you, and Mr. Lane as well.
Good evening, Eric Demas, CFO. The purpose for the order in front of you actually plays well in hand with the issue that the council was previously talking about in regards to the buildings down with the recreation center. The city on occasion has the opportunity to rent out facilities throughout the course of the year. Those revenues typically will come in and we take them in as general fund revenue money as we would with any other. However, Mr. Lane has been working diligently since he's come on board the past approximately 6 months now, trying to address some issues within city buildings citywide. And it's been very difficult for us to try to figure out what we can fund, what we can't fund, what construction costs are, which projects are running over, and actually where George has actually been able to save us money. Recently, we've have begun the process of negotiating with renting out additional space at the old high school to an organization. As part of that process, it's going to require Mr. Lane and his crew to go through and make modifications. A lot of areas that he had mentioned earlier, public safety, fire alarms, that sort of thing. That would be required for us to do that to actually enter into a rental lease, whether it be for 3 months, 6 months, a year, or what have you. So the purpose of what this revolving fund would be to strictly set aside the money from the rentals from these city buildings to be placed into this fund that would be appropriated like every other revolving fund every year by city council, that Mr. Lane and facilities maintenance would have access to throughout the year to do either general maintenance or capital improvements, whether it be public safety, aesthetics, what have you, without having to wait and slow down and get each individual project or appropriation requested. This way we could say all of the monies that we take in for the rental of these city buildings, we can set aside to be appropriated on an annual basis that would give Mr. Lane and facilities maintenance access to make whatever needed improvements or changes or modifications to city buildings.
Councilor Hanlon did have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. When you establish this fund, and we have rent from several buildings, is it going to go into one fund, or is it going to go into several funds for each building, one for each building?
The order that is before you is going to go into a single fund to be used specifically for city buildings.
Okay.
The city currently has, City Council has approved a very similar fund for the school department buildings. We separate school between city buildings, however, at the end of the day, they're all taxpayer-owned buildings, but the purpose of what this fund would be a general fund to be used for all buildings that are non-school related.
Well, I'm thinking of that, I'm just saying that, you know, let's say we have 10 buildings, we collect money from 10 buildings, and all of a sudden we have a project for one building, all that money is going to go to the one building. And, you know, as opposed to saying, let's get the money that we need for these buildings and put it in the budget where I think it belongs, so that we know that what's coming up. But we would have no control, if you want to say that, over what goes on in these buildings, because you have a fund and it can just go anywhere. And that's my concern, that, you know, we don't know exactly what's going on with the money that's being collected for the funds for all these buildings. And we get rent for the Armory, certainly it doesn't cover anything in the Armory, or rent for, except for the high school maybe, you know, that would, I'm sure we're getting some money for that. But the other places, I can't see them putting money aside for the rental to cover anything that's going to wash the floor. I don't mean that facetiously, you know, but what I'm saying is that.
Certainly.
You want to do a roof, you're never going to get enough money from rentals for the Armory to cover a roof or a door even, you know.
Point taken, and the purpose of this fund would not be to, for instance, take on such a project I would ever envision as to replace a roof on the Armory. Within the facilities budget that gets appropriated as part of the normal general fund, there are a number of projects that facilities maintenance will include in their request. For instance, if they want to take on 3 or 4 various little construction projects throughout the city, we budget for those and we include those. The reason why we're proposing this type of mechanism is because we've just recently run into a situation where we are going to be potentially leasing out some space in the old high school. We didn't plan for this. We didn't plan to be utilizing that portion of the building. And as such, there is no appropriation for us to make the needed modifications to make the available space worthwhile and work within the needs of the organization. So by setting aside these funds for items that we normally through the course of business would not be from a capital standpoint planning, it allows us to make modifications to the building. There are certain areas, I think Mr. Lane was referring to, that, you know, we just recently put the school department up there, and there are a number of classrooms. In doing so, we realized that a lot of these buildings that haven't been maintained to the level of which they should have been maintained over the last number of years, there were certain public safety modifications, there were disability modifications that we needed to make. So that's really the purpose of this fund, consistent with other revolving funds, of which during the annual budget process we would be submitting a list of all of the revolving funds to be authorized by City Council. All this does is allow us the flexibility to utilize new income that's coming in specific to the rental of those buildings and to allow us to address additional modifications. In addition to that, there will be additional operating costs involved with the city leasing pieces of property. For example, if we had rented out the gym on an evening where we normally wouldn't be opening, then Mr. Lane has to staff his facilities people there, usually through overtime or to clean up or for whatever other custodial purposes. So by allowing us to set some of this rental money aside and into the separate fund, it gives Mr. Lane the flexibility to do what facility maintenance needs to do for those items in which we did not anticipate happening or planning on when we had presented the original budget.
I just want to, you can do that, but I just want to say, I don't think your rental money is going to cover your maintenance cost at all. You know, I mean, you know, one maintenance job could wipe out the whole account. You know, that's the way I feel about that, and that's why I think that all of this stuff should be presented up front, you know. I mean, Mr. Lane's been around long enough to know what's wrong with the buildings. Make a long list and put it in the budget. That's where I'd like to see it, so that we could take care of it. That's my feeling. Thank you.
Councilor Capone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to our invited guests. I share some of the sentiments of my colleague. I know that I understand the purpose and the reason for the process to move along quicker, you know, kind of slowing things down, but sometimes slowing things down from our perspective is the right way to go. We're talking about financing, and so if I'm reading my colleague correctly, more of a capital improvement thing versus a revolving fund. What kind of figures are we thinking with regards to the fund? You know, it's a smaller amount to something maybe you don't worry so much about in terms of capital improvement, but if it's a larger amount that we're looking at to go into a revolving fund, that's when concern would be heightened, because we are accountable, as we all are, we're accountable to the people of this community to make sure that the money's being spent in an appropriate manner. I'm not suggesting that it wouldn't be, but that's part of our function. And if we're not safeguarding that function, we're kind of abdicating part of our function. But to the point, what are we looking at, would you guess, for an annual amount, if that's the way it's going to be going forth on a revolving fund?
Well, great question, and I get your point. From an amount standpoint, it's all relative. George, the specific lease that we're talking about right now and the required build-out that you foresee that you're going to need to accommodate this potential new tenant, what would your estimate be?
So when we estimate a project like this, we don't, obviously, we don't include labor. So we figured this project to be around $20,000. This will complete a build-out for these rental people, and then we'll take a monthly rental income, and that's where Mr. Dumas is gonna set us up so that we have no way of putting that money into an account and drawing off of it. Although this is a private company we're actually doing the build-out for. So they're not bringing in their own private contractors. It kind of get messy because, then we'd have to oversee the project anyway. We'd want to make sure that they're not doing something electrically in the building that could, hurt something of our plans further on down the line. We want to make sure that they're not messing with life safety things that we've already got put in place. So we have to be part of it. We'd much rather do it in-house anyway.
Sure.
We have more control of it. So what Mr. Dumas is trying to do is he's trying to get me a way that we can actually use this funding. It will be the private party or the private person who's going to come in there. That's who's going to fund these items. And then we would be able to build off of that fund. As far as, one maintenance project would wipe out the account, I don't think that's the maintenance part of it was really the intent of it. I mean, at some point, maintenance and keeping up with it, yeah, some of it would be used. But as far as building out these areas, that's our biggest target area, is that if they're going to have us build them out, how are they funding it? So that's what this whole thing was, a lot of it was meant to be too, as far as funding projects, not using city money, using the private people's money who's gonna then come in and rent anyway. Let's use their money to build it, and not the taxpayers, as you say.
So just to follow up, he just talked about an estimated cost of about $20,000. The lease is still in process of being negotiated, but because we are in negotiations, I can tell you that right now, I would estimate in this instance, we're talking about $60,000 a year.
Okay, just in that instance?
In this instance, that's correct.
And what would be your best guess with regards to the amount of revenue that's brought into the community from rentals along the lines of what we're looking to do from city buildings?
From city buildings, I don't know of any other large leases that we currently have. The one large lease that we did have was with the charter school, which is no longer, they've since moved on. So we don't have a strong history as far as, long-term leases, at least to my knowledge.
Sure.
I don't know of any other larger leases that are on the horizon that this would accompany. But as part of the annual budgeting process, so for right now, I would say my best guess this year, we'd be looking at roughly about $60,000 in revenue. Should anything arise, I'd be happy to update the council. But then as part of the annual appropriation process, when city council goes through and they'll reauthorize every year those revolving funds, we do report to you and we'll continue to report to you, and it would include this fund as well, all of the revenue that was taken in within those revolving funds, and then the related expenditures that were spent from those funds.
Okay. And based on that information, do you believe the initial request would be somewhere in that $60,000 range, or for the revolving account? Or do you have any
with this
figure in
order
mind?
right now? Yeah, actually, within this order right now, as required by statute, it requires us to put in a not-to-exceed amount.
Yep.
Not having any idea what we have on the horizon, I don't think there is any chance we're going to meet it, but because I had to put a number in, I put a number of not to exceed 200,000. But the only thing that I know of is that significance is the one lease that we're currently in the process of negotiating.
Okay. And my final question. So let's say you have it in there for 200. Let's say, and you got to start somewhere. You're not sure what you're going to run into. Let's say the council feels that 200 might be too high a number. and we make an amendment so that that number is a lower figure. We'll go to our annual process budget. We'll fund the revolving account. And now, how does all this work? The money initially is set aside. Revenues will come in from the rentals, go into general fund, and then eventually.
No, so the way it works, and you absolutely could alter or amend the amount not to exceed. The one thing I do want to point out, though, is that even if the council authorizes whatever number it would be, we would still not have the ability to spend any of those funds until we actually collect. We would not have the ability to deficit spend. So if the amount on the order was $200,000, George just can't go out and just start spending $200,000 because we have amount not to exceed. It would only be limited to the amount of fees that were already collected. Now, the way it works with revolving funds is that once City Council, under Mass General Law, authorizes a special revenue fund or a revolving fund, the revenues related to that revolving fund are now restricted specifically to that fund. So as they come into the city, they do not get deposited into the general fund or any other account. They all are accounted for and go straight into that newly created revolving fund. Any related expenditures authorized through that order are then charged and spent to that revolving fund. So it is a separate form of accounting. It's the same accounting that we do in the general fund, just on a very much smaller level.
Sure.
So just like every grant we have, if we have a special education grant, it is a separate fund that all of the revenue that comes in for special education goes into that fund, and then any related expenditures are expended from that fund, so that it is very tight, clean, and all of the activity is kept together.
Okay, and a follow-up on that. So an amount not to exceed is there.
Yes.
Obviously, revenues are generated, and then you can start to move. But obviously, the need to do the work is going to exceed whatever rent is being paid up front, correct? Or no?
We're still in the process of negotiating how the payments are actually going to be received. But in the answer to your question, we cannot deficit spend.
Right. But if it's funded by the council, so you already have that number there, you can't exceed that amount. But is that completely mirrored by the amount that's come in?
Yes, it
Okay.
is. So we are limited. So, for example, if you were to authorize $200,000 for this fund, and within the year we collected $60,000, we could not spend more than $60,000.
Okay.
Even though City Council, through their order, has authorized not to exceed 200, we are absolutely limited to the funds that are actually collected. Just because you authorize it, we're not allowed, it would be referred to as deficit spending. Just as we could not go over a budget within the general fund, we can't actually go over what we're actually going to collect. Just because you have that authorization does not allow us to spend more than what the city's actually going to receive. The purpose is to build the fund up to be used for specific purposes, not for us to actually have to go through and create problems where we overspend and we don't collect the money, and now we actually have to go through and the tax rate setting process and then raise more money through taxation. The purpose is to try to avoid that and try to reduce the amount that we raise through taxation.
All right. Thank you very much. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. Mr. Councilor Peter Napolitano.
Thank you. Through the chair, Stevens, good evening. Perfectly honestly, I kind of like this, and I'll explain the reason why, and I got a few questions for it. I mean, the intent in this is not to create a fund that we're going to allow us to do capital improvements. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Though funds from here could potentially be used if the need warrants under the criteria that you're setting up the revolving fund in the first place.
Yes.
So, okay. I mean, I don't think any member in this room has ever not asked themselves, where does money go from here that comes into the city? Where does it come in from there? Not every building that we have is going to be generating any type of fees like leases or so forth. Police station doesn't lease space. The firehouses, right?
Correct.
Okay.
They do not.
So this is just strictly a fund that allows us to be able to make sure that money coming in on rent or lease on these properties is going into a specific fund rather than disappearing into the general fund where ultimately we have no idea how much is coming in. It's just getting weighted by the total amount of the general fund.
It is being masked, yes, by all of the other revenues within the general fund. Fair assessment.
Okay. I mean, I think it's a great idea, because eventually we will develop a fund there. We don't have to always go in and hit the taxpayers' money. The money going in for these properties is not being absorbed into the general fund. It's being held specifically to go back and re-support, any augmentation or any repairs or any work that needs to be done on these buildings.
That is correct.
That's correct. And the general fund, we still approve money coming out of it. I mean, not general fund, I'm sorry, the revolving fund. So if you come in, if you need to take money out of that, is that still approved by the city council?
Well, I just want to be, I want to be clear about that. Yes, revolving funds do require city council authorization, which is done on an annual basis with an amount not to exceed as prescribed by Mass General Law. So as part of the budget process, there's not just one vote that city council takes. There's a vote on the general fund, there's a vote on capital, there's a vote on water sewer, there's votes on debt, but there are also votes on all of the revolving funds. And those require an annual appropriation every single year with the authority to not overspend. However, if city council authorizes these revolving funds, and we are generating these revenue, and George needs to go through, I'm sorry, Mr. Lane needs to go through and to address an issue at the recreation, he doesn't actually need to come in and seek additional authorization from city council, because the authorization of this order and the creation of this revolving fund gives that authorization for the year. But that is done on an annual basis.
And in which case, the revolving fund is strictly a revenue source, or rather, for income that's coming in for the use of these properties, whether it's a lease or a rental. So there may be times where we might need to appropriate additional funds. But if we need to appropriate additional funds, it's going to be a smaller amount than if we had to appropriate the entire amount in lieu of not having this revolving fund.
That would be the intent.
Okay. I'm fine with this. I mean, it makes perfect sense. I think the more we direct money toward back into these facilities, and the facilities are generating some income, I honestly don't think we're losing any ground as a city council. I mean, I'll be supporting this.
Part of the reason when I came up with this thought process and presented it to the mayor was having gone through these buildings with Mr. Lane and gone through the fire department and gone through every section of that old high school and seeing the conditions of some of these buildings, realizing, and George explaining to me, Eric, I'm not just constantly asking for money or where can we get additional funds. Let me show you what we're dealing with. And so it was as part of that process and going through these buildings and taking a look at the conditions of some of these areas. And then when this new lease came up, we said, we have the ability now that maybe we can start doing some of these things that have been unplanned and that were not normally part of his annual budget process. Maybe there's a way that we can increase some efficiencies. And so that's one of the reasons why we're here tonight.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Councilor McLaughlin? Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Councilor Della Sola before you. I'm sorry, Councilor. Councilor Della Sola.
Good evening, gentlemen. Would this have any effect on, I know our youth sports use the rec center a lot in the past when the gym at the old high school was available. They used to rent the gym or the rec center. Would this money go into, instead of charging them for using it? Because the youth sports, sometimes they're hurting for money, and I've seen it add up to, for example, the cheerleaders up to the old high school, $10,000 for a year to rent out the gym that is part of the city. These are every kid using that gym. So would something like this, if you had $60,000 in there, go out so they don't have to pay to use the rec center or the old high school like in the past?
The order that you have before you is not addressing, and I did not intend to address in any way, in how things in organizations are charged by the city for the rental of any, the use of any
I
facilities.
think we should stick to the subject right now. I'm sorry.
Well, it is.
I don't want to
If
interrupt.
we have the money we
But
have
this,
60,000
that's not the item that's in front of us, and you're more than welcome to put that on the agenda for the next time. But you have people here that are not prepared to answer that question. They don't have anything in front of them. So I'm going to recommend that you put that on the agenda for next time, because that's not the item that's in front of us.
Fine. We just asked 13 questions, and I'm
Well,
asking
but
one.
but we ask questions based on the revolving account, for not a specific,
All right, so my question would be,
the question.
if you have 60,000 in the account for the year, where is that money gonna go? You're saying for the rental, lease, and is it gonna be repairs, minor repairs, or major repairs?
How it's being proposed and what would be authorized for expenditures out of this fund from the fees generated would be everything from general maintenance, which would include if there were overtime costs to keep a building open late, if it would be custodial cleaning, if it meant, changing lights, providing additional supplies. But I also made sure that we incorporated in there in case that we did generate sufficient funds, if we found ourselves into the situation where we were generating enough that we could actually do more, that we could also do more than just general maintenance, and it would be capital-related items. So if we had to upgrade a firebox, if we have to upgrade an electrical box, things of that nature. So it would be strictly related to expenditures associated with the building itself, not necessarily the use of outside agency, outside.
Okay. Thank you for answering my
individuals.
question. Thank you. All set.
Council.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. One of my questions, what will the funds be allocated for? What is the guidelines if they're able to? And you just answered that. So I'm glad to hear that some of the defrayed costs would be for custodians to keep buildings open late and so forth. The problem that I have with it is not to exceed $200,000. I think that's a large sum of money to start with. There's 3 buildings really that would generate money on this purpose: the old Everett High School, the Wellness Center, if a private organization were to rent that for space, the Armory, or the Conley Center, and the Recreational Center. Correct?
I think that's a fair assessment, yes.
So there's 3 buildings that could be utilized that would generate funds for this purpose. We know that there's a $60,000 lease currently for the recreational center, but there are many other times throughout the year that the rec center will be that get rented for smaller events or for even private parties and so forth. Same thing with the Conley Center. An organization wants to hold a conference or something to that effect, they rent the Conley Center for a day or for a weekend or whatever the case might be. So there's 3 buildings that could currently. I think the not to succeed of $200,000 is excessive for that purpose. I think if we came in at a smaller number, we still on the city council have some direction of where those funds are going. I think this is a mechanism that we lose the sight of what's happening in our buildings. So when people come to ask us, we don't have an answer of what projects we're doing or what projects are slated to happen in the future. As Councilor Napolitano said, it's not meant to be for capital improvement projects, but in hindsight, it's going to be utilized for improvements of each building that we currently own. So if something goes wrong at the rec center and something goes wrong at Central Fire Station, what gets prioritized is now the jurisdiction of yourselves for this, with this fund available. It's not the jurisdiction of the city council approving a capital improvement plan that may or may not have A, B, or C listed the way we would like to see it as people, as representatives of the people. We kind of lose sight or forefront of being involved in that process. Would you agree with that, Mr. News?
To a certain degree, yes, I see your point. If I could just clarify just 2 things, though. The one thing that I do think that this does actually do that I don't think that you thought that it did, to me, this actually does provide more transparency to our rental activity of our city facilities, because now all of that activity will be accounted for in one fund rather than lumped into, say, the general fund, where within the facilities budget, if he has a line item for maintenance of city buildings, that encompasses all of the buildings throughout the city, and he's doing what he needs to do. That revenue comes in, it goes strictly to just a miscellaneous, a general revenue account. When you set aside activities within a revolving fund such as this, it allows us to very clearly state, last year, we took in this much rental income from the rental of city buildings, and here is what we spent it on. So it does tie those expenditures strictly to the related receipt activity. So you can view that it may jumble things up, but in my opinion, it actually makes it a little bit more transparent.
But you would have that answer by the deposit slips throughout the course of the year. So even without this mechanism in place, you still know how much rental money is coming in at the end of the fiscal year because of deposit slips. You have to clarify that you took in $60,000 in the course of a year for X lease. So deposit slips still come to the same solution to this mechanism by the deposit slips. Now it's the administration's responsibility at that point to explain to us where 80,000, 60,000 or 80 or 100,000 went. If 100 came in, did we use it in the best practice? Did we use it to try to upgrade our buildings? Did we use it in the proper way, or did we take that and fund accounts in offices for office supplies, or whatever the case might be?
Sure.
It helps, the way it is set up today, helps us as a city council have more involvement in funds. And this actually gives us less involvement at the end of the fiscal year. And as a representative of the people, we're accountable, as you guys are as well, to the people. But at this point, we are taking our involvement away. Do you agree with that?
I appreciate.
And you can disagree. It's okay.
I do, and I appreciate the fact that you have the confidence to know that I will always be able to tell you where every dollar is, regardless of whether we account for it in the general fund or whether we account for it, through a special revolving fund. I will still say, though, that when you actually, just to give you an example, because I do disagree with you on that aspect, just to give you an example, within our financial statements, all of that information is in there. And you would have to look on multiple pages, for example, to go find out how much we spent for this activity and where that revenue is coming from. When you take a look at the comprehensive annual financial report that I present to the City Council that we have audited every year, you'll see supplementary schedules that are in the back of that document. It's a couple 100-page document. And each one of these revolving funds are titled out. They're listed as to what the name of the fund is, and which gives you the purpose, but then shows you exactly what's going on right in that, basically, if you would, from an accounting standpoint, one column of numbers. You're going to see the revenue that came in with the expenditures directly related to that activity. So I do disagree. I do think it is transparent. From your standpoint, if you're asking me as to whether or not, in my opinion, you're potentially giving up some control, I certainly think that you do raise a valid point, because if we run into an issue like this without this mechanism, then we're going to have to come to council and say, listen, we've run into this situation either through free cash or, if we haven't yet set the tax rate, we would have to come to city council at that time for that specific appropriation. If you pass this mechanism, then yes, we would not have to go through that process or that mechanism, except for when we go through it on an annual basis.
And for me, I like checks and balances, to be very truthful. I like the check and balance process. So it just doesn't give the administration to have a runaway train, to be able to do as they so choose throughout the course of the year.
Well, quite frankly, I would disagree the runaway train comment.
Not that I question that you guys won't do the right jobs throughout the course of the year, because I have full faith in Mr. Lane's department. It just gives us less involvement in it. I'll yield the floor to my colleagues at that point. Yes.
Madam Chairwoman, can we call for the question, please?
I have two more speakers from, according to parliament procedures, one to be called for the question. I mean, it's not fair to the other speakers because they do have questions, but at this point where this is a lengthy question, it really should go, in my opinion, it should go to committee.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, and it's not fair to the people that haven't spoken yet, but unfortunately, this is going on, according to the parliamentary procedure, I say this goes to committee, so.
Second the motion.
I have a motion to refer this to Ways and Means Committee. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Excused with the customary thanks.
Wait, no one did.
One opposed.
Yep, I'll record as one opposed.
Right. Can I ask the question now? But once it says,
So you can always take it back, but we don't.
Mr. Clerk, could I be recorded as opposed to sending that to committee also?
Yes, Counselor.
Ways and Means? Yep.
Thank you, sorry.
Mr. President, can we suspend the rules, take item number 17?
Second motion.
Motion made and seconded to suspend the rules and take item, what was it, Council 17?
Yes.
All those in favor? Opposed, the ayes have it. Item 17.
Trying to work on that one, thank you.
I have a written statement. I have a written statement from the chief. I'm going to read.
Item number 17, Mr. President, is an order, a resolution offered by Councilor John Leo McKinnon to have the Chief of Fire come before the Public Safety Committee to assure us that the Puma vent system that was installed at Hancock Station are going to be moved to the satellite station at the old high school for the period of time the firefighters will be there due to fire trucks, fumes, and health problems that can and have occurred as a result of them being airborne without the system in place.
Councilor McKinnon.
I received a written procedure that they're going to be doing now up at the temporary station. I spoke to Chief Colley, and I want to thank him for doing that. The new procedure is for E2 temporary quarters purpose, the safety operation of Engine 2 while it is located at its temporary quarters at the old high school. Scope, this policy shall apply to all members of the Everett Fire Department responding and returning from calls. The procedure for responding to calls while stationed at the temporary quarters is as follows. The apparatus garage door shall be active to open immediately when entering the garage area by pushing button, which is located by the interior bay door. When returning from calls, the garage door shall be closed by the same push button located by the interior door. The apparatus garage door remote control should only be used to operate the garage door from the apparatus when leaving and returning from calls. All doors leading to all quarters shall remain closed at all times. No door shall be secured in open positions. That's a new procedure that they're going to be doing at the temporary fire station now. In regards to the Puma vent system, it was because of the emissions coming out of the engines, and it was causing bladder cancer at the time. That's why they introduced the Puma vent system. We did that many years ago, and I think I wrote the legislation on it. So I asked them to put it into a policy for these gentlemen so that they could feel safe and secure up there. So this is a great policy. I want to thank the chief again, once again, and if there's any questions, by all means. But I'm going to refer this back to sponsor.
Can you please place that letter on file with our city clerk you requested? Motion made and seconded to refer the item back to sponsor. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Item 8 is the next one on our regular business.
Do you need a copy, or can I keep this? Thank you. Okay. Are we referring back to the regular order of business, Mr. President? Yes. Number 8 is an order offered by Councilor Anthony DePiero as president, a petition for a permanent awning at Mendez Fashion, 12 Chelsea Street.
Do we have a picture of the awning?
I do not have, I do have a picture of the awning, it should have been in your bottom mailboxes, but I can pass it around. The petitioner was invited and is supposed to be here. It's the same person, same company doing the last 2 awnings. So it's the same company. They are aware of our rules. Here is the petition. It is a red, though. Does state it's red.
Favorable action on the order.
Motion made and seconded for favorable action on the order. Please call the roll, Mr. Clerk.
Yes. Counsel Capone.
Yes.
Counsel De La Sola.
Yes.
Counsel DeFlorio. Counsel Hanlon.
Yes.
Counsel Matusky. Yes. Counsel McKinnon.
Yes.
Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Counselor Napolitano.
Yes.
Counselor Sani.
Yes.
President DePiero.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Order has passed. Item number 10.
Item number 10, Mr. President, is an order offered by Counselor Anthony DePiero as president to accept the policy against fraudulent conduct, misappropriation, and corruption.
Favorable action?
Motion was made and seconded to accept the communication and place on file from the committee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. What is your pleasure on the piece? Councilor McLaughlin was waiting to speak first. Councilor Capone yielded the floor to you.
Okay, thank you to my colleague through you, Mr. President. I have not had a chance yet to look at this piece of legislation. I don't know if my colleagues have. Obviously, none of us are in favor of fraudulent conduct, misappropriation, and corruption. At least I'd like to hope that we're not. So, however, I would like a little bit of time to take a look at this. I'd ask that we lay this on the table to our next meeting.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to lay it on the table to our next meeting. On the motion, Councilor McLaughlin.
We had a lengthy discussion in committee on this item, and I asked Mr. Demas if he would bring back some suggestions to the administration that I had concerned with regarding our ethics committee here in the city council. And I'd like to just ask him this evening if he has had the opportunity to do that, although it's only been a couple of days. So if he has an answer, that'd be great. If he doesn't, I'll wait for 2 weeks. But
He's shaking his head no, and being that it's going to be laid over to the next meeting.
Okay, he doesn't
We
want
were
to
here
talk about it.
Thursday, they weren't here Friday.
All those in favor?
Monday.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The item has been laid over to the next meeting. Item number 11.
Item number 11
Fraudulent conduct appropriation.
is an order offered by Councilor McLaughlin and Councilor Hanlon to create a legislative code for city council officers. Just so we know, this was referred out accidentally, should be just sent right back to legislative affairs. Correct, Mr.
Motion to accept the committee report,
back into
place on
committee.
file.
Make a motion to put it back in committee.
Motion to do as such. All those in favor?
The chairman of the committee. And the
Correct.
And the chairman of the committee will,
Right, it was accidentally
Just to explain, during committee, it was agreed upon the committee members that this piece would be sent to a work session. This is a blank slate, there is nothing attached to this item.
Correct.
And it's yet to go to the work session, so we're going to refer it back to the chairman of such committee to schedule a work session.
That sound right?
Make a motion.
Motion
Yeah,
made and
back.
seconded to refer this item back to the chairman of such committee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Would we like to take items 12 and 13 collectively? It's up to the body, both related. Motion made and seconded to take items 12 and 13 collectively. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Clerk?
Item number 12, Mr. President, is a resolution offered by Councilor Richard J. De La Sola to invite DPW Director Jerry Navarro and the spokesman for the National Grid, Dan Cameron, to the next Utility Committee meeting relative to the Ferry Street project and the condition of the street. Item number 13 is a resolution offered by Councilors John F. Hanlon, Michael McLaughlin, and John Leo McKinnon, that the city engineer appear to explain to the public the condition on Ferry Street from the beginning to the end of the street.
Motion made and seconded to accept the committee report. And is it referred back to sponsor? Is that the motion?
Refer back to sponsor.
Second. Councilor Matusky on the motion?
Just for the record, when is Ferry Street going to be completed? I mean, does that, yeah, but is Can anybody answer?
Councilor McLaughlin was on the committee that was just held prior to this meeting, so I'll let him fill you in. He knows more about it than I do,
I've had a lot of people call me,
as we all have,
travel
yeah.
in the city. I mean, I don't know. It seems like it takes longer. The casino might be open before that's done.
Let Councilor McLaughlin, through the chair, please explain
Thank you, Mr.
briefly the committee meeting that took place.
I will very briefly. National Grid was slated for a 2-year project. They came in last year as their first year. They were actually able to do 2 years' worth of work in the course of 1 year. So the water work that is being slated for 2018 has a full year to catch up in budget-wise before they can spend the funding to be able to do the water lines. Because National Grid finished a year ahead, there's a year gap in between the gas and the water being done. National Grid is responsible for the maintenance of the road until such time that the water work begins, which is around fall of next year, right about a year from now. So National Grid is committed to going out and doing some more surface repairs right now. They're going to go from Rich Street down Ferry Street until a reasonable amount of surface is covered. And they're going to continue to go section to section throughout the course of the next year to keep Ferry Street as passable as possible. We know that the winter weather gets worse with plows ripping up streets, but they are committed to working with the city council to keep it passable throughout the course of the next year until the water work starts. There will be no additional work done on Ferry Street until next fall when the water work begins.
Mr. President, I want to thank, I was just yielding
yes,
for information permit. This, I don't know who organized Ferry Street, but we all have seen what it looks like, what it like to drive on. It's a mess. And this is going to be another year and a half, 2 years?
Unfortunately, yes.
That's terrible. That's almost worse than the Florence Street Park there, Chelsea Street. I mean, come on. Jeez. Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. Councilor Hanlon?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just want to mention that somewhere in the works is also that complete renovation of Ferry Street from the beginning to the end, including a rotary, or a roundabout, whatever you want to call it now, that will be at the end of Ferry Street, right before South Ferry Street. So that's in the works, too. And I don't know exactly where it stands, but I don't know if anyone's at the presentation that they made at the Armory. It was a big company that came in to make that presentation to put it in as soon as things were clear on the street. I don't know what that means, but I just want everybody to know that's still in the works. They still may want to do that thing all over again, including the rotary at the Everett Springs.
On the motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Items have been referred back to sponsors. Item 14. Yes.
Item number 14 is an order offered by Councilor Anthony DePiero as president. A petition for mechanical license from TNT Auto Repair, Inc. at 39 Garden Street.
Subcommittee report and
Right,
grant
Hold
for
on one second, Councilor.
This is being held over. It's not supposed to be on the agenda. Piece is still in committee. It was just placed here.
proper
So accept the committee report and leave,
Uh,
and make a motion to leave it in the committee.
No committee report, just to,
Yeah.
Motion was to leave the piece in committee, and it was seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. I think we're up to 18.
an extra minute. Item number 18, Mr. President, is a resolution offered by Councilor John Leo McKinnon to invite the mayor's office, designees from the chief of police, the police patrolmen and superior union, and reps from the auxiliary police department to the next public safety committee to begin talks on moving forward with a plan for all to work together to move the city forward.
Motion was
And
made and
invite-
seconded.
And
Invite all the individuals that are mentioned here to that meeting as well.
Motion was to refer this piece to the Public Safety Committee and invite all the individuals mentioned in the piece. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Item 19.
Item number 19, Mr. President, is a resolution offered by Councilor Peter Napolitano in the interest of public safety that the animal control services be expanded to address a wider range of animal issues in the community.
Councilor Napolitano?
Thank you. Purpose of this is that, you know, we've all had dealt with issues recently with rodents. I mean, as my colleague in Ward 5, Councilman DeFloria had mentioned earlier, that's why we've got ordinance to bait, put bait and traps whenever work is being done. But what happens when they're there when there is no work being done? Okay, we've got all kinds of issues in this city. We have rodents, we have skunks, we got coyotes in North Everett. My own neighborhood, some of my neighbors were planning on coming up tonight for public participation, but I live in a neighborhood that for 60 years, we've never had rats. We have rats running through our neighborhood. There's no construction. There's no holes being dug. Where are they coming from? Now, we started looking into this and started calling back to the city. I called animal control. And though I have respect for the person in that position, her response was that she only deals with dogs. This is what animal control has evolved into, is to just focusing on the dog, the leash laws, keeping the dogs controlled.
Domestic animals.
We're changing in this community. We have problems with like the various animals. I mean, you know, I remember 15 years ago we had a problem with cats, feral cats. That was addressed by animal control. Yet somehow we don't address those issues anymore. I spoke to the chief of staff, and you know, the thing is that things are changing now. We need to take a more elevated look, and we need to raise the bar on this situation. City's going through a lot of development. Okay, these animals have lived in this community as long as we have lived in this community. Okay, it's not going to get better as we continue to take up more available space and they integrate themselves into our lives. I don't mind raccoons. I don't mind possums. Rats, whole nother story. Okay, I've got my backyard baited. They're still coming through. Okay, we've had people down to look at some of the homes in the area that might be generating it. Fines have been assessed, and cleanup has occurred. Rats are still there. We need to take a better look at this. I mean, honestly, if there was a way to import the coyotes from North Everett to deal with the rats in South Everett, we'd be all set. It doesn't work that way. We need to take a more active approach. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to get a dialogue going to discuss elevating that position, making it a little more meaty. When I lived in Maine, when I was in the service, we had a skunk in the house. We called animal control. They came down. They set a trap. They caught it. They took it away. That's service. Right now, we don't know what to do with them. The best thing that code enforcement can do is put out a flyer advising people how to keep their barrels down. And they did a great job with that. But that's not alleviating the problem because people are keeping their barrels closed, yet we still have rats. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to refer this to Government Operations, Public Safety, and Public Service. I'd like to invite the police chief, because animal control reports his department, the animal control officer, the mayor or the mayor's chief of staff, Mr. Demas, the CFO, planning department, Board of Health, and code enforcement, thank you. That's all I wanted to write down.
Motion was made and seconded.
The number of people, I'm sorry, let me.
Was it to a committee?
Committee, yes,
Yes.
to public safety.
Thank you.
Councilor McKinnon on the motion?
When he's done.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to make sure you got the.
The list we have, I just didn't hear the committee.
Okay, great.
I made note of the list, Councilor.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor McKinnon?
Through you, Mr. President, it would be helpful, maybe our clerk can actually explain. We wrote an ordinance in regards to the baiting of the rats. And
It's
there
under
was
Chapter
an issue
13A.
in North Everett, I know, at one site. But what we did was, we ended up writing that it's one or two, I think there's two ordinances now. One is for dumpsters, one is for any
Construction.
earth construction or anything
construction
that's
buildings.
built up. So there's two mechanisms in place now. This may be another avenue that I agree with my colleague that we could actually look at different animals that are actually being affected now by all the construction and everything else like that. So it's feasible to say that we should actually take a look at it. But there's 2 ordinances in play right now that I know of, and I believe it's code enforcement that handles it right now.
Yes, they're the major,
Okay, because that's who I was writing it with. I believe that's what it was with Mr. Nuzzo. So there's 2 ordinances in play. We may have to amend it to add different animals that are now coming out, and as well as different, homes and stuff like that that are in there. So if code's not dealing with it, then we need to actually see why. So I want to thank you for that. And it's a good piece. I'd like to jump on it as well if I could.
Councilor Napolitano?
Thank you. And I'll make that motion when I finish what I say. We did look at both the pieces that regarding that were, and the thing is, when you have dumpsters, you have accountability. When you have contractors, you have accountability. This is a neighborhood where we can't identify the accountability. And right now, the only answer we can do to alleviate the issue is to drop flyers and respond with, we only handle dogs. Can't be that way. We've got to take a more elevated look at this. So I am going to motion to add Councilman Leo to the McKinnon. I knew it. Thank you. At the end of the day, getting old.
I'll let you know what it is.
To the piece. And again, I'd like to refer it to. Well, I'd make the motion to add him to the piece.
Second. Motion made and seconded to add Councilor McKinnon as a co-sponsor of the piece. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
And then my motion is to
And
refer it to
your original
committee.
motion was to refer the piece to Government Operations and invite the Chief of Police, the Animal Control Officer, a representative of the Mayor's Office, Mr. Demas, Planning, Board of Health, and ISD. Did I get them all?
Yep.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Aye. Number 20.
Item number 20, Mr. President, is a resolution offered by Councilor Peter Napolitano that a representative from Community Development and the Mayor's Office appear in Community and Business Development Committee to provide an update for the plans for developing the property at 95-97 Summer Street.
Councilor Napolitano.
Thank you. Some of you may recall this is a piece of property about 2 years ago. There was a fire right around Christmas
Day.
Eve, Christmas Day. The building's gone. It's been leveled. There's talk going around in the neighborhood by some of the residents that the city is actually going to take the property and develop a park. If it is or it isn't, I don't have an issue with that, but I want to eliminate rumor control. I'd like to get an update. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask that someone from the Mayor's Office, the city planner, come and give us an update on what the plans are for that piece of property. I'd also like to know what the value of that property is and what type of costs we're going to be looking at. And if there is a plan to renovate it, what the costs are going to be there and where those funds are coming from.
Would you like to refer that to a regular meeting, Councilor, or?
No, the item says to send it to committee.
I apologize.
That's great.
Motion was made and seconded to send it to the Committee on Business and Community Development, invite a representative from the Mayor's Office, Planning, and if you could just let the clerk know the specific questions you'd like answered. It was value
Sure.
of parcel and whatever else it was, so we can have that ready for our guest.
Absolutely, thank you.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Final item, number 21. Yeah.
And I would CC Caroline McCory on that also. Thank you. Item number 21 is an ordinance offered by Councilor Anthony DePiero to amend Chapter 12A-61, Political Signs of the revised ordinances of the City of Everett.
Refer to Legislative Affairs.
Motion made and seconded to refer the piece of legislative affairs. On the motion, Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I think this is a very good piece. I think other communities do it, and it's very effective. I want to thank you for putting this forward, and I'd ask that you respectfully add my name as a co-sponsor to this item, if you wouldn't mind. I appreciate it.
Is that in the form of a motion?
It is in the form of a motion.
Is there a second?
I'd like to have my name.
Motion made and seconded to add Counselor McLaughlin to the piece. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
On that motion?
I think there's a few more motions out
Yeah,
there.
I'd like to be added to that piece.
Maybe get a consensus on
Get a
all of them.
consensus
And
first,
also
councilors.
Counselor Hanlon, because he also
I said
actually wrote
me.
a piece on this a while back.
To tie us to the council, that's what I was gonna ask, just to make it.
Motion was made. Is it seconded to add the entire body?
Second.
On that motion, Counselor Matusky, and then Capone. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. President. As we all know, we had a primary for councilman at large just the last Tuesday, this last Tuesday. And the candidates put up signs, and that's fine, because we had an election, right? A primary day election. I think most of us put up signs that were running for that office. However, there's candidates that were unopposed that decided to put signs up. Well, one of them told me they weren't putting any signs up. And you know, I had people, primary day, ask me, where are these other candidates? Their signs are up. Hello, they're not even on the ballot, they're not even opposed. They couldn't wait until after the primary to put them up. Now, I can understand the Ward 2 race, because there's an election in November. The only races in this city, I mean, really, let's be real here. Let's be real and gentlemen. You want to talk about a gentleman's agreement, that should be the first thing on the thing. If you don't have a primary, what are you putting signs up for? Wait like a gentleman, a woman. It's only natural.
Gentle person.
And in the case of somebody that has an election in November, well, that would be okay. But you're completely unopposed. And people were confused election day, at least they told me, where are the other candidates? I said, well, geez, they're unopposed. They won't, you know, you'll vote for them in November, but needless to say, the turnout was very low on Tuesday, primary day. And that's due to the weather, I think. But for the most part, and there's a rule in here. There's one guy in the city that has 7 signs in front of his house. Hello? I mean, give it a break. The house is only 25 square feet long. I'd be embarrassed if I lived next to somebody with that. I'll tell you, my neighbors wouldn't do that.
Counselor, I would ask that you come to the committee meeting and voice your opinion before the committee.
I'm not on that committee.
You're welcome to come and
Well, I
speak
know that,
on
but
a
I'm
piece.
expressing some of my, that first one is my main concern, Mr. President, and I agree that if you lose an election, take your, when the election's over, take your signs down. There's some signs that have been up for a couple of years around here. Needless to say, you know, it should be regulated. There are some incidences of, you know, like I said, 7 signs in front of a guy who's got a house that looks like a cottage. It's over the top. And it's for 3 different candidates, or 4 different candidates. Just, but that covers it. That's in there, I noticed.
Yes.
You can only allow a certain amount. But, you know, that's just my feeling. And, you know, I love campaigning, don't get me wrong. But I'm a gentleman. I didn't put a single sign up till the September 11th, which is 8 days before that primary. I waited as long as possible because, number one, I want to win. Number two, you have a primary in 8 days. But for crying out loud, for the guys who like to put them up a little early with no primary, I don't think that was too cool. But that's just my feelings. Thank you.
Call for the question.
I just have one quick question because I'm not on this committee. I'm sorry.
Prior.
Okay. Thank you. I was going to speak to actually adding a name on, and I think that the piece has some merit. I think there's some things to look at. I personally would not add my name to the piece simply because I think we have to be very careful about constitutional speech. There's free speech. If somebody wants to put a sign up, they can put a sign up. If somebody contacts you and asks you to put a sign up, that's their choice. Some people put signs up, they don't ask anybody. The signs just go up. So the reality is there is a lot of abuse of signs across the city. That I'll grant you. But I think we have to be very careful about how we word an ordinance because this is someone's property. This is their private property. If they want to express support for an idea, an individual, that's fine. I think that we as a community are trying to safeguard certain things But I think that we as a community also do tell folks what they can and cannot do with their property. And sometimes people have a little bit of resistance to that. So at the end of the day, private interests have to come into play. Private property has to come into play. Free speech has to come into play. And as long as it's done in a tasteful manner and it's done with the homeowner's consent and with their request, then I think we need to back off and we need to respect that. But I think that the piece should go to legislative affairs. I think it should be worked on. And if there is a general guideline that we can incorporate in order to ensure that we don't have the unsightliness that we do have in some parts of the city, and at the same time maintaining a sufficient level of free speech for a property owner, then I'm all for it. But right now, until it's worked out, I don't want to put my name on anything that's going to restrict someone's free speech. So I just respectfully ask that my name not be added on as a sponsor.
No problem.
But I do think that there's some merit to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor DeFlorio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not on this committee, so what I really would like to have this committee work on is there are candidates that are just putting signs up everywhere. They're hoping that the absentee landlords don't realize it, because I've had a few calls, and then what happens is the landlords are afraid to take them off. So I believe that every candidate should get permission from the person that's asking them to put up the signs.
May I just,
Any sign I have put up, it's because people have called. People called, they want to sign up, they're entitled. We are entitled to put signs anywhere we want. And I haven't put up a lot of signs. I respected the primary, okay? But I have people calling that want them. And if people want them, I'm going to put them up and nobody's going to stop me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Napolitano?
Yes, I mean, the thing is, we're not looking to create an ordinance, there is an ordinance. Okay, we're looking to tweak it, provide some enforcement, so certain issues. I've also received numerous calls from constituents who have supported me in the past, residents with foreign-sounding names that are finding a sign in front of the house that they didn't authorize. Those signs are gone. They threw them away. I've received a few calls and asked to take them down. I've returned those to their owners. These things are the whole reason why this has gotten blown out of control. And the thing is, I'm glad that somebody who's not opposed this year is bringing the issue up, because someone had asked me about it before, and I said to them I didn't think it was good timing. You know, you don't want to bring up an issue if you're in a race and sound like you're trying to make some type of sour grapes. That's not the case. It's not about that in one bit. So I think this is good. I think it does need to be reviewed. But I should also add that we need to invite members of the Election Commission, because they are the enforcing body of this. They supplied each and every one of us in our nomination kits with the details on the ordinance. So if we're going to talk about it, we need to include them. If we're going to talk about enforcement, we most definitely need to include them. And of course, we should also include the city solicitor, because the question of free speech is a big issue here. Council debated 10 years ago about the idea of abolishing this. You couldn't, because we do have the freedom, you do have free speech. But let's not go nuts here, okay? The bottom line is we get permission, we put them up, you're done, you take them down. Okay? So I would motion to include those individuals.
Just to get a consensus here, I have a list going of Councilor Sarni, Councilor Hanlon, Councilor DeFlorio, Councilor McLaughlin. Is there anyone else that would like to be added to the piece?
Can include me.
Councilor Napolitano and Councilor Della Sola.
Councilman Matusky?
No. I agree with Councilor Capone. I don't think I want my name.
So motion made. Is there seconded? Second. To refer this piece to the Legislative Affairs Committee and amending it by adding Councilors Sarni, Hanlon, DeFlorio, Napolitano, McLaughlin, and Della Sola as co-sponsors, and to invite the Election Commission, the City Solicitor, and City Clerk. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Before we adjourn, tomorrow is Councilwoman DeFlorio's birthday. On behalf of the City Council staff and members, a happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Is there a second? Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? Opposed? Meeting adjourned.